I mean, obviously, we want to hear from you, but it's the first time I've watched the film like completely for like 15 years from beginning to end, and there's so much more beneath the surface, so much more that's not there, so many connections, and I'd love to hear from you guys. Questions, comments.
Something occurred to me tonight that hadn't before, which was the importance of maybe the films having been begun and executed right smack in the middle of the Reagan years. And whether this is any part of the impulse to, like, let's get this film done now.
I think it was, well, first of all, we were really young. We were in our 20s when we made it, so, we didn't have a long view of history, really. I think we were just really interested in understanding, sort of like, certainly for me, probably for Robbie too, it was sort of excavating your own family history in a strange way, because nobody had ever looked into the story of gay and the genesis of our identity and whatever. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, that's why we opened with Reagan. Isn't that the first clip or very early?
Oh, I mean the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
The army film. What's it called?
Did you know that's him? Reagan
That's right,
is
that's right.
the officer in the thing, and then of course he comes on later as it's an illness and everything.
Well, just in terms of funding, the around half the budget for the film came from the public broadcasting network, and I think it was kind of like at the moment it was the last gasp of money coming down for this kind of thing before the more conservative reaction against public TV and the National Endowment for the Arts that really decimated some of the public funding for the arts for a long time. That was part of the Reagan era, so we kind of slipped in under the wire. But I don't think that we made it so much in reaction to that. I mean, I know, this is interesting, I can tell the very specific genesis for me of how the film started. I was probably 23 years old, living in Boston, and I read an article in a great Canadian gay newspaper called The Body Politic that was very important in the gay liberation movement, and they had serialized a series of articles by John D'Amelio, wonderful, amazing gay historian who wrote a book called Sexual Politics, Sexual Communities, that a lot of the original research for that book went into this movie. And he wrote a series of articles about Harry Hay and the Mattachine Society, and Harry's in this film, and Mattachine is too. And I read that, it was like my light bulbs went off in my head. It's like I never thought about what it was like to be queer before 1970, before I came out, around concurrent with just after Stonewall. And I never thought about that there were people working with political ideas, challenging the status quo that early on in that kind of direct way. And I thought, this would make a great movie. I remember sitting in my kitchen thinking that I wanted to make documentaries, and eventually I moved to New York and I hooked up with Greta, and we also should thank John Scagliotti, who became the executive producer of the film after we'd started working on it. But it was very much a very specific, like, I was exposed to a history I didn't know about, and that made me want to know more, and I'm sure for all of us that was the case.
Yeah. Look.
Well, I'm just going to say, the riff on that is that, I made a lot of historical documentary films since then, but I have a hard time putting myself into a historical context. But when we had the film in Berlin recently, an old friend of mine who's a programmer and in the business, whatever, he from the floor said, yeah, well, the film was of the time of the 80s when sort of leftist and feminists were doing films. Remember, like Rosie the Riveter was a model for us,
And we were totally inspired.
And
by
the Lincoln Brigade and those films. So we were like, yeah, but there's never been something. But when you said the funding was kept for these kinds of things, there was no these kinds of things. Remember, this is the first film to ever get money from public television.
I just also want to give a shout out, since we're dealing with the archives and in history. Prior to Before Stonewall, the only really big LGBT documentary was Word Is Out, which it's in the archives too, obviously. Word Is Out was an amazing film that I saw a few years before that. And I think there's actually a couple of overlapping people in the film. I don't know, but it really dealt with some of the same issues, but in a more personalized way. There were definitely people who came out before Stonewall, and I'd wanted to expand on that idea as well And a big shout out, of course, to the people who made that film, and Rob Epstein, who's a Californian-based wonderful gay filmmaker.
It was a really interesting experience to see the film this time, because I was thinking, gosh, it's great for anybody that needs an inculcation of what are some of the landmarks, the things you really, really have to know about victories and achievements and ways that people were kind of defining their way of entering a movement. You know, they're kind of listed here in a really useful way. But also, interestingly, in a very kind of personal way. You kind of, your way in is usually through a side door, somebody who remembers how it was that night and this kind of thing. And also, it's never the slavish feeling that, like, here's your list. It's more just like a lot of experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think both of us were really interested not in, first of all, there were probably only 2 or 3 historians who had even done any work on the whole thing. Absolutely. I mean, there was like Lillian Faderman, Alan Berliner, not Alan Berliner,
Alan Berube.
Yeah, thank you. And
Joe Nessel in the archive.
And the archive. But they
Very
weren't really
little.
historians. They were just gathering. They were like, we have to gather our stories so that we have a history, so historians have something to write about. But we were really concerned with the whole idea that, you know, remember the personal is political, personal history. So it was like, we'll take the broad strokes of American history and we'll put gay and lesbian experience into it through personal stories. And I kind of have maintained that throughout most of my historical documentaries. I'm much more and in all my films, I'm much more interested in the people doing the work and living the stories than in the historians telling them. And I realized when I was watching the film how much that set that tone of interest in that way. But actually, when at the end, when Craig Rodwell says it's hard for young people today to imagine, I find myself thinking that often. I'm like, it's hard for young people today to imagine there was a time when, you know, in relationship to all sorts of gay, lesbian, and other political things. Or even the idea, like, those images in World War II of the exercises. No one had ever said there had to be queers in that footage. It could have been a gay man who shot it. It's so, like, homoerotic, you know? And so we started to look at visual imagery in a different way, working with the...
Had the film not been made until now, we'd still celebrate it. The thing about it having been made when it was, that makes it kind of special, is that these people are speaking with the power of authority and so forth, and yet they're still very vital at the moment of the film's making, you know, and speaking about their memories of the 20s and the 30s and World War II and everything, but in a very lucid and very powerful way. And I remember meeting Jim Kepner and Morris Kite maybe 10 years after this, when they were still fighting the fight and everything. But to see them like this, still kind of in there powerfully, was quite beautiful.
And what about Liza Ben?
She's the folk singer who you see singing
Lisa Ben.
throughout.
That's an anagram, by the way.
For
Lisa
lesbian.
Ben. She was amazing.
Talking about history, probably very few people caught this, but in the Joe McCarthy hearings, the Red Scare stuff, that section, one of the people sitting next to him, always at his left hand or right hand, is Roy Cohn, who was his lawyer, famously involved in a lot of the persecution, who turned out was gay, but was involved in the persecution of gay people. And I just read this big article about on the New York Times, I think, how Roy Cohn, in his later years, his last 5 years of his life, was one of the key mentors, if you can believe this, of Donald Trump. So I just was watching this and thinking, wow, there really is continuity in this world, in that there's good people going back generations, passing on the legacy and the torch, and then there's bad people doing bad things that are all connected to the present. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, a lot of stuff did feel very immediate in those, you know.
I mean, I leaned over to Robbie during the thing when they say at the time there was the radical right and the radical left was growing in Europe, and I'm like, oh my God, deja vu. It's exactly what's happening here and then there. You know, how history is not linear. History is circular.
And maybe it's saying the same thing I said before, but something about the dynamism of the way that the film is conceived and constructed and everything, I think is nice, because it's not an inert history. This is very active. There's a lot of imagination at play, and the stakes are very high. And these experiences, there's a way of looking back at old photographs through a sort of like rose-colored glasses and how beautiful the past is and everything. But here are people who really underwent severe trauma and are now, brave enough to still talk about it and everything. The the story of this woman who was compelled to or convinced to incriminate somebody else and damage them and so on. Really, really painful and a very important part of this. And I thought your title, it struck me when I read it tonight in introducing the film, is very precise. Talking about the making of movement, because who knew that they were making a movement, that they were making a mass movement, and yet people were all over the place.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. I told you this before that I find it fascinating to show the film and hear from people who are much younger, who this is a very different perspective on. And one of the criticisms that have come up, and if you look at Amazon, where you can buy it, you can see it on the Amazon comments in Minority, but complaining that we kind of created this seamless narrative from persecution to sense of oneself as a minority to a political movement of everybody coming together. Now, I'm watching the thing and hearing Audre Lorde, who's the wonderful black woman writer and activist, talking about the different pieces of the movement and the gay girls and the black gay girls. And I think, well, there's lots of diversity there, but I've heard this before about that criticism. And I think what it is this was sort of like queer history 101 in a feature film. We were laying down this marker. It would be there forever. These people are mostly, vast majority are dead. I'm not sure who's still alive. It's there. It's almost an archive in and of itself. And then filmically, after this documentary, someone made a documentary about Harry Hay, a wonderful documentary about Harry Hay.
Another one about Audre Lorde.
Audre Lorde, Daughters of Bilitis, so lots of the World War II one from, what's his name, based on Alan's.
Oh, Arthur Dong.
Thank you. Yeah, Arthur Dong.
Who was just here recently showing another film.
So lots of other films, let alone books, were written.
They came from the people of the film and the ideas of the film.
There was room then, once you have this marker down, to dive into the details in lots of ways and bust those things open. But I don't see this film as sort of creating this weird connection of one kind of group, but it's interesting. I've heard that criticism before. So.
Well, you should never read your reviews, Robbie.
I have so many more questions, but I thought we'd open it up to the audience if we could. There should be a microphone or two in the house in case you want to put up a hand. We can all hear the question, and or just a response. How about right here in the middle? And here comes that mic.
First, I want to say this is the first time I've seen this film, and it was amazing. You guys did an incredible job. And I was just wondering what the response was from the general public when it came out, and how this film impacted the movement after it came out.
I'll answer part, and I'm sure Robbie has a different experience. But I think it was incredible. Like the Main Street Press, like the New York Times, the TV Guide, all were like, "This is a must-see, highly recommended."
We were shocked by that, though.
And it played in Sundance, which was before Sundance. It was
USA?
independent.
USA Film Festival.
It was in Park City, but it was before it was
Called
Sundance. And then the LA Independent thing, I think you were there, and but a lot of PBS stations refused to carry it. So we organized a campaign where we would go out and organize screenings and letter writing campaigns to pressure the local PBS stations to air the film. But what happened was that it was in some places, like one I remember really well, we went to Norman, Oklahoma, and they screened the film in a suburban movie theater in a shopping mall, and the people had blocked out the mall owners had put a black bar over the words "gay and lesbian" on the poster. So I mean, it was uneven. It was wacky, But I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, a few years ago with a totally different film about creationism and science, and a guy came up to me and said, "I was at the Little Rock PBS station and they wouldn't show your film, so we made copies and gave it to everyone." I was like, I'm not sure, is that a compliment? Or like, I'm not sure, it was so weird. So it was very uneven, but there weren't gay festivals there then, were there? There were a few.
Very few. I mean, we showed it, it was one of the first public screenings was the Castro Theater in San Francisco. We were both there. It was sold out. It was the first time I'd seen it with that size of audience, and it was sort of euphoric.
Robbie, my sister's here. She helped organize the reception.
There we
Hasn't seen her since then, probably.
But I mean, I think generally, like Greta said, it was very, very well received in the general public by TV critics. We did do a theatrical release, and it was seen by thousands of
really
people.
big then, yeah.
But the thing is, on our ratings on public TV, with like some handful of millions of people watched it. I can't remember what the number was, but it was definitely widely seen. I don't think you could. I mean, I can't put my finger on that it had a specific impact on the movement or community, but the many screenings I went to at the film festivals and like at the Castro, I sat next to a friend in LA. I guess it was at that film festival, the LA Film Festival, and he just cried his way through it. He'd come out in the mid-60s, and he just like sobbed his way through it. And I was like, I didn't know how to respond to that, but there was a lot of intense reaction from audiences, so I'm sure it made a difference for people.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, yes, I forgot that side of it. There
Well-
was definitely a lot of emotion.
And also now, subsequently, starting around maybe 10 years afterwards, I'd meet adults who would say to me, and this was definitely a lot of heterosexual adults, you made that film, that was required, we had to watch that film in my gender studies class, in my sexuality class, and realizing that it had become a classic of those kinds of classes.
Those
at
classes
universities.
didn't exist when we made the film.
Right.
It's like such an amazing idea that, it's like that. A year ago, my niece, a couple years ago, one of my nieces, she goes to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and she called me up on the phone one day. Oh my God, they're showing your film in my gender studies class, and I was like, do you get extra credit for knowing the director? So, I mean, it's the idea that those classes didn't exist at all. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, interesting.
Good. How about another one? Also, with the middle, just about here. Mike.
Thank you for making this film, by the way, for having the courage to make it when you did. It was a little less fashionable then than it is now. The media landscape today and the political landscape have changed enormously since this film was made. But then recent events have reminded us that there's still a lot of homophobia under the surface that we need to address. So what sorts of stories do you think need to be told today at this moment in history?
Well, you're a programmer. You probably know more. I mean, I have to say, I am with some of my other films. I'm in a distribution collective that has this whole group of like young gay and lesbian film directors who are making film. People of color who are making their films about their own lives and their own stories. So they're like coming out of their own stories from their own communities. I find that really powerful, and like I feel like I'm kind of passing a torch, and it's really nice. About Hollywood and feature films, Robbie, you know more about that than me.
I mean, it's funny. I also founded and ran the Miami Gay and Lesbian Film Festival for a while, and I know for myself and most of the audience members who, let's say, 40 and older, people were like, I don't want to see another coming out story. I don't want to see another documentary about how bad things were or are. So that's an interesting question. What do people want to see? For one thing, talking about stuff today and watching down in Miami, what was happening with Orlando with the massacre and stuff, I thought, there's still stories to be told, for instance, about gay Latino lives, this whole gay Puerto Rican community in Orlando, which is kind of unknown to the rest of the country. We were listening to them talk about, gay, Latin night, the gay club, and it's such a common thing for us down in Florida. But I think that there are stories there still to be told, and the after effects of things like Orlando. I think someone hopefully will dive into some of those things and let those stories shine in a bigger way than you do in the news.
Thank you for the question. And there's one right here. And here we go.
Well, it was really very interesting to be able to see a lot of people in the film like Harry Hay, who are no longer with us. And I'm sure probably what's interesting for me and probably for you as well is that a lot of the elements of the film that were for you contemporaneous when you made it are now themselves historical documents. My question is, given that the title is Before Stonewall, you could have started anywhere. So how did you decide, or what were the reasons you decided to start your narrative in the early 1920s as opposed to somewhere earlier?
Well, for one thing, we wanted to make like under a 90-minute film. That was for one thing. But also, I think it was like the turn of historians were starting to say the turn of the century was when the even though, of course, homosexual acts and lifestyles are found throughout history, the self-definition really formed around the turn of the century.
Well, I mean,
that right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we were specifically looking at a primarily American moment, American history in this film. And we were also, when we were trying to work, as Shannon pointed out, we were trying to work with living people we could interview. So there's a limit to how all those people were and what they were talking about. Sure, you can talk about famous cases like Oscar Wilde. We could have gone into all kinds of European stuff that we didn't really go into. But I think it was partly telling the stories based on actual people we could interview. So that was another arc. And we were trying to look at the developing sense of individual people feeling persecuted or having individual ways to try to make themselves happy in private, to developing a sense of consciousness of themselves as maybe a community back in the 40s and the 50s, and then that community thinking about, hey, maybe we should do something in a political way about the troubles that we have. So it's so that arc we were trying to follow, and not go back to the Greeks and Sappho and all that other kind of wonderful stuff for other movies.
Take another one. Thought I saw. It wasn't a hand. I'm sorry. I had a question just a little bit about John Scaglietti was here representing In the Life. The Legacy Project has also intaken all the episodes of In the Life, this monumental and the first LGBT television program of its kind, which now actually you can stream it online on our website. But that relationship is interesting too, because he's has his own importance to, of course, the New York scene and to the telling of the LGBT story and so forth. And I wonder how that partnership came into being, that you and John all got together.
Well, as I kind of implied, I had this idea for making the film. I met Greta through we had like a sort of a LGBT filmmaking circles in New York. We started working together on the project when PBS wanted to give us money. They as Greta implied, we were both much younger, and they asked us to they made a marriage with John. I'm not sure if they suggested.
It's really funny. I never knew exactly why they recommended John, but I found out like a few years ago when I was on a panel like this with John, and someone asked that, and he said he had been developing a series with PBS that got canned. He thinks because it was like the beginning of the Reagan era, and they sort of gave him before they asked him to exec produce Before Stonewall as sort of the booby prize. Little did he know it would launch his career.
Just so In the Life, for people who don't know, like it was the first television show that was independently made, but it was syndicated on like PBS stations, cable channels, and it went on for quite a few years.
A magazine show.
Yeah, it was like an hour-long anthology program.
And has some relationship to this too, because they did deep history at times. They'd bring in either people to give testimony or
and I wonder if part of I think part of the reason that they stopped carrying it was almost like its own success killed it, because gay stories were starting to be carried in mainstream news and mainstream magazine shows. So it was really hard to justify.
Well, I mean, we were talking at dinner about Outfest and LGBT film festivals and what their role is now. And I was thinking, because when I ran Art Festival in Miami, it was 15 years ago, and things have changed. And to me, the marker is there are streaming TV shows like Transparent on Amazon, which is probably one of the best LGBT content shows I've ever seen in a movie or TV show, and that's already out there, and it's so mainstream and so easily accessible. What does it mean to have this kind of media, these kinds of films, which we made this as a groundbreaking thing, but now there's an explosion of content out there. It's very different.
Well, but in the world context, the film, I mean, how we got started with making the restored print was the film was invited to be part of the 30th anniversary of the Teddy Awards, which, as you know, is the biggest gay lesbian film award in a major international film festival. This film was there before there was a Teddy Award, actually. But anyway, the point is, so they have 10,000 people, and it's broadcast on German TV. But one of the things they do is they bring festival organizers from all over the world together, and they do a lot of work with people who are trying to work with gay films or making them in countries where you can be imprisoned, murdered, severe penalties, and they learn how to encrypt file. They do this underground thing. It was just fascinating. So it's very, as I said, history isn't linear, and things go up and down.
Oh, good question at the very rear of the house.
Well, first I just want to make a comment. Thank you so much for making this film, and it's so precious to have these memories, preserved. These people are all gone now for the most part.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate seeing it, and seeing it the way you structured it. It was, I know a lot about gay history, and I've lived a lot of it, but it felt different seeing the way you pieced it together. So I really appreciated that. I just had one question about the restoration. What did that entail?
What it entail?
Mhm.
Well, the CRI, right? I think the CRI is in the UCL archive here. And is there people from Periscope? Are you here? The guys who, there's a place here. Anyway, there's a, I don't know all the language of this technology. They scanned it to something, some computer thing. And then there's a digital cinema company, Salzgeber, you saw, who's our German distributor. And then they did whatever you have to do to make it a DCP. Robbie knows more than me.
Just for tech purposes, this is a 2K file that we're showing, a 2K digital file with 2,000 lines of resolution. Actually, as far as I understand, this probably captures more information than than we had in the original 16 millimeter print.
Yeah.
I'm watching this thing. This looks so antique. This little square we're seeing on the screen, but it obviously was shot for television in 16 millimeter, which is.
I love that part of it.
Well,
I love the scratches and the little marks.
So, but this we
Shows
made
its age of grace.
but this is a 2K. This is a 2K file, which is kind of a standard that can be shown in regular movie theaters and for high definition TV as well.
Yeah.
But it still looks tiny and square in the antique way.
Yeah. There was, Robbie and I were whispering a little bit about our favorite bits, but one of the things that there's in terms of history coming back, Frank Kameny is being interviewed in front of the White House about how he appealed, but actually the Obama administration pardoned him.
Yeah, right.
Just before he died, invited him to the White House and pardoned him. I wish we had been there filming. I mean, it's just an incredible idea in one lifetime how much has shifted, despite how much has not shifted. I think Barbara Giddings summed it up so succinctly. It's not our problem. It's about changing the attitudes of other people, and we're never going to change everybody's attitudes. All we can do is be sure that protections under the law are equal. But you can't always change people.
You pointed out something that we both thought about with the Orlando shootings. It was like almost the first thing I thought about besides being shocked with the 50 people who died and whose names are displayed in newspapers and TVs. How many of them weren't out to their families or their friends or their work? Some of them had not be. Imagine back in the past when they're talking about it was a way of attacking people by printing their names in the vice raids,
Right.
because pretty much every single one of those people were not out to most of their families, to their friends, certainly their jobs,
Right.
and they lost their jobs. And today, you're watching CNN, the coverage over and over, and they were
Reading all the names.
It was like they were reading the names like a roll of honor and remembrance, and there was very little talk about it being something potentially disgraceful or problematic.
Oh, yes.
first of all, I wanted to thank both of you for making the film. I remember seeing it when it first came out,
Thanks.
and it's great to see this and I was reminded, because of watching your film, I went and did something that I've done about 2 or 3 times since then. I don't know how familiar people here are with the Paley Center, which used to be the Museum of Television Radio. They actually have a file on hand of regular mainstream American programming prior to Stonewall, where primetime drama shows featured stories about gays that were very surprisingly avant-garde and progressive for the time. And also there was that special that Mike Wallace did called The Homosexual that came out in 1967, which
We could never use that in the film. They would never
Really?
CBS
They
wouldn't give
wouldn't
us
give us
rights.
the rights.
But that's a great. I just want to say that none of this stuff was organized in any of these archives,
Yeah,
including
yeah,
this
yeah.
one, in a
Yeah.
way for us to find. And I think it's a good moment to thank Andrea Weiss, who was our archival research person, who did everything to find all this material when it wasn't organized. And it's amazing that it is now.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
I was just
that's so important what you just said, how that and also like with the legacy project within the archive, because I mean she would like go into the thing. Like one of my favorite stories is how she find the drag queens arrest stuff. It wasn't under drag queens. It was under like what was the word for like illicit behavior? No, it wasn't
Like
even
Vice.
Vice Squad. It was Vice Squad. It was like, you had to think with a whole different kind of approach, a whole different. The thinking was completely different. I can't even. It's hard for young people today to imagine.
So I just want to again thank you for. By this film, it really sparked my interest in learning more about gay history, and I
Thanks.
found all this stuff.
And it's just a good story too, isn't it? This history.
Yeah, I think it. I'm always amazed how it flows. Actually, I said to Robbie during the thing, "Damn, Bill Dalton was a great editor."
Our wonderful editor, Bill Doughton, who's passed away.
Who
who
died. I mean, the people who worked on the film with us either died of AIDS, or now they're all cancer. I don't think anyone's. I think Ivy Bettini might be alive.
She is from the same. She is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we should have invited her.
But-
I thought of that when she came in. I thought, oh shit, I think she lives in Los Angeles. Oh well.
But I mean, it is so important. So most of these people are gone, and it's great to have their stories on camera, kind of forever now, digitized, hopefully forever.
I just pinged on a question I didn't realize I was going to ask, but we don't talk much about AIDS. We don't talk about AIDS in the film.
It's
It was pre-AIDS.
well, it was just that.
But we didn't. It was called the gay can. It was called the gay cancer.
While we were filming during production, it was
No,
already
but the
going
film
on.
ends in '69.
Yeah. But
And it ends. I mean, we had to have beginning. We had to have a marker thing.
no, but
But when we were touring, didn't I remember like being? I remember especially like in one TV station, the woman would not shake my hand because of AIDS, and I was just like, what? I mean, that's how wacky people were about it. Yeah.
But 83 was when we were intensively in production for the film, and I remember discussions in the office about stuff.
Whether
and-
we needed to, yeah.
Right, like
we were aware of
I
it,
didn't
but-
want to admit where I was going on a Wednesday night
Right.
to John, who was in a couples relationship, and I
Right.
was playing around still. So there were things going on.
And there
Yeah.
are people in the film remembering things who are now living in the age of AIDS. But it's true. This is probably the last documentary of its kind that would have been possible to do.
Yeah,
without
yeah,
then
yeah,
making-
interesting.
But
And then
and
when
some
did
of them
Vito
died
die? When did Vito die?
after the film.
I know
But-
that, but
oh.
not much long.
No.
I mean, he was like the late
90.
80s. Late 80s, right? 97? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But some of the gay men in the film, mostly the younger ones, some of them died of AIDS, but most of the people in the film just died of
Yeah,
old,
they
the
were
diseases
older,
of old
yeah.
age. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the youngest people in the film are just slightly younger about the age that we are now. So we were talking about, God, we could be interviewed for a film about some past, like the 1980s kind of thing. But so
We
some,
are being interviewed right now.
On film.
some of the youngest people, some of them, a handful might still be alive, but most of the people, would be over 100 who were in the film at this point. So.
Here's a question.
I just wanted to thank you again. I mean, you can't say it enough. As
Thank
a
you.
young gay person, this is something that although I'm aware of the history, and because I purposefully research it on my own, there was a lot in the movie that I was not aware of, that I didn't even know it went back that far. I mean, you hear Stonewall all the time, Stonewall, and for a lot of young gay people, it sort of doesn't go beyond that, I find. That's sort of the limit of what, yeah, exactly. And that's sort of my question is, yes, I am aware of my history and my culture, but I know a lot of people who are my age and younger who aren't aware of that history and some people who aren't even aware of how enormous the AIDS crisis was. Where do you find that dropped off in the last couple of years? Like, where do you find, since researching, gay history, where do you find that sort of dropped off in the next generation?
I don't think. I think that Audre Lorde sort of says in the film when she says, gay people. I'm going to say gay instead of GLBT because I'm old enough to be able to do that and be it. And I mean you all. The gay people are just a reflection of the society that we live in, and so when the culture in general has a sense of a historical context, then gay people are more involved too. But I mean, although I guess I'm not sure even if I don't know. I'll ask my 15-year-old. Is gay history included in regular school curriculum now in American history? Is there any reference to gay history? Yeah, okay, so we still have a problem there. And she goes to a really rockin' public school in New York City with gay teachers. So this is interesting.
Well, I mean, we live in, I think, a very ahistorical society and culture where people don't see things in context. It's, people don't. I mean, I was shocked the New York Times did this whole excavation of Donald Trump and Roy Cohn, which takes you back to Joe McCarthy and the Red Scare. But in general, people don't know about their history in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I know young Latinos in Miami who don't know who Cesar Chavez was. I mean, there's just really disconnect, I think, for younger generations from that. And then also the shifting sense of what identity means in the LGBT world, that people don't necessarily identify that strongly as I'm part of the gay minority. So this film has a different kind of reflection as well. But I just think there's a lot of amnesia, cultural amnesia in our society, our cultural, about all kinds of things, not just gay issues.
Oh, this is great. We're on a roll.
Just one thing that I really found interesting was the headline in the New York Times after Stonewall, which was that you showed in the film, which was 3 cops injured in bar raid. I mean,
Yeah.
that's page 1 or whatever it was. I don't know. But that was interesting.
Well, I mean, yeah, it wasn't until much later that the significance of that riot, I mean, even the idea, I was thinking of that, like, when that, and also just the idea that a riot is now a place of a riot is now celebrated as a national monument. I mean, that's a pretty weird idea too.
Well, just to be clear for anyone that doesn't know the history post Stonewall, within 1 year, so by the next June, there were already people, at least in New York and then starting around the country, celebrating the Stonewall riot as an important milestone. So within the burgeoning LGBT community, people began to recognize it very, very quickly, but it's still, the mass media and the mass culture was very far behind in terms of recognizing that at that moment. But that's what's shocking, was how quickly, like, that was like kind of a match being lit on a bunch of tinder ready to go into flames. It just changed overnight. 1 year is an overnight kind of thing, for suddenly people started establishing gay political groups and gay liberation organizations, and the women's movement and lesbian groups was just overnight were blowing up around the country.
And your positive review in the New York Times too was also probably a landmark in the Times, because they actually refused to use the word gay
Yeah.
Until around that time.
We were
Yeah.
shocked by that review. I have that review. I have the actual clipping of the review yellowing in my files. It was shocking, and the reviewer, I forget the guy's name, was actually known to be conservative, and he.
Yeah, what was it? In what paper?
In the Times, the New York
Oh.
Times, the review. It was a shockingly positive review. So I don't know. It was things change.
I just find it the movie's so irresistible, and the people are the things that when you meet these people, they're so particular. Like, who knew?
Oh, you know what
that
we
a
did?
generic lesbian could be so personable, or
Well, we didn't. They weren't. I mean, the organization of finding the people to be I mean, we were working first of all in 16 millimeter film, which meant that it was so expensive. It was like $200 for 11 minutes of stock and processing. So, like, you had to think, and that was $200 then was a lot more than $200 now. So we thought a lot about who to interview and how we were going to interview them. We had already a sense of where they were going to go in the story, before we went and did the interview. And what we did was we did pre-interviews on Half Inch. We had like Andrea and I think it was Amy Chen and Andrea organized the local researchers. I'd have to look in the notes. But anyway, we had local regional researchers like Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Atlanta, New York, whatever. And Seattle. Yeah, Seattle, yeah. And at that time there was a whole underground gay press. And we put ads in there, and we said, we're doing this film, we're doing this research, we're trying to tell our story. We want to look at personal archive, which was the first time anyone had looked at personal archive of gay and lesbian lives as history. And so people were like, well, why do you want to see my home movies, or my photograph? And so we would have local people tape them, and then I think we did audio tapes, and then if we thought they were...
We did both. It depends. Each
Yeah, and
city was
then if
different, but-
we thought they were interesting enough, we would do half-inch, VHS tapes. I mean, we did a lot of... It wasn't just like the way you kind of... A lot of research is done now where you just kind of have an assistant go out
Just
and talk
as
to
a
someone.
ballpark, I think there's about 25 witnesses, people being interviewed in the film, and I think I think we did 75 total we identified 75 people that we wanted to get to know better, and we split it up. When I remember I did San Francisco and Seattle. I think we went out and did videotaped and audio taped interviews. I mean, it's weird watching this in terms of home movies, because for me, I remember some of these people so distinctly, like sitting in their living rooms, finding going up to their homes where they lived. I mean, the people in San Francisco and Seattle, which are the ones I spent the most time with, they're so intimate. The time I spent with them before we came back, when we filled them, we already had known what their stories were going to be. At the very end, Ted Rolfs, one of my favorite characters, the guy says from Stonehenge to Stonewall, he could repeat that line on a dime. That was one of his trademark lines. He said it to me 5 different ways in 2 different interviews prior to that. So I was like, can you do that Stonehenge line now? Oh, yeah. And he just he had a little story led up to it. So, I mean, he was like 80-something, so he had his stories. Do you remember I guess the Ted Rolfs story? I had a chiropractor in New York. Remember Karen, what's her name? I got her through.
Vaguely.
Okay, it was her recommendation. This chiropractor was this sort of like...
She recommended Ted.
No. She was like this Danish butch dyke who was like, a gruff voice. She was working on me. I was telling her in this film, it's about to premiere at the Waverly in New York. I don't know how we got onto who was in the film, and I mentioned Ted Rolfs, and she goes, Riff Raff Rolfs? And I said, I don't know if that was it. They were in the Merchant Marine together in World War II, and I gave her his number, and they reconnected after like 40 years. It was the chiropractor you sent me to in my papers. So, but anyhow, it's a very small world of...
Yeah, well, I was thinking sometimes we tried to put people and interviewed them and somehow that we thought reflected who they were. So, like, George Busey has, like, a Gloria Gaynor in the poster. And then Ted Rolfs is standing in front of, like, a merchant marine ship. But in the film, we don't mention he was a merchant marine.
Yeah,
so it was kind of like, well, that was interesting. That was pretty funny.
It all feels natural.
Yeah.
I had a feeling there was some other question just pending right then. There was something came to mind too about this. the clips research and everything that was done, but there's some pretty amazing stuff licensed. Was this hard to do, expensive, or these rare films that were in the public domain?
Some of them, I mean, some of them were in the public domain. Some of them were we just really. I don't know who negotiated the rights, Robbie. Actually, now I can't remember.
It was all a different combination. Depends what it was. I mean, they're really.
But did we have like now? Where I have someone, I would be like hire someone who negotiates archival
No,
rights.
it was us
We didn't
arguing
have
with the
that,
archives, right?
Yeah.
It was,
Okay.
but there's a tremendous amount of stuff there that is community-based research. I mean, we found treasure troves of people. Those drag queens with like the little, like that was somebody's home movies. The film of the lesbian wedding was somebody's home movies. So we found people who had home movies of their lives, obviously more from the 50s and 60s, and you may not always see it, but there's actually also photographs of the individual people as young people. We try to juxtapose them. People had stuff.
Done on little index card research, little boxes. Like
We weren't using
that's
computers
incredible.
back then.
I was tripping to think that as I read one of the last cards in the film, that some footage in the film comes from the UCLA Film and Television Archive, and now this film becomes part of the UCLA Film and Television Archive.
Nice, isn't it? Yeah, and I was trying. I mean, I'm sure I have somewhere in my files the what do you call it? It's like a sheet where you have to write the archive, where it is in the film, where it comes from, to trace back. I can probably find out what's from the UCLA archive.
It'd be nice to know.
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun. It's fun. It's amazing to think of that.
And now to see it on screen again, because I don't know, as many times you may have seen it, I don't know how many times, like me, that you've had the opportunity to screen it and see it without hands and so forth. How's that experience as compared? Can you remember the feelings of maybe the first public screening or festival screening?
I mean, the first big screening we had a big audience was at the Castro. That was before we opened it theatrically. Do you remember the Castro screening?
Of course.
Okay, now that was overwhelming. That was, I mean, if any of you have been up to San Francisco or the Castro, it's like 1,500 people at least. I don't know the number, but it was.
They're typically really vocal.
Yeah, it was that one and the one in LA at the LA Film Festival. I don't remember the theater, but that also was sold out. Those were very, very overwhelming, emotional peak kind of events. I saw this on screen like maybe 10 or 12 years ago in Miami. There was some screening of it there, but this is the first time I've sat through it. I wasn't going to. I told you I was going to go out and do something else, and I sat through it kind of riveted. I think, as a filmmaker, you always, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I watch things and think, oh, I wish we had done this. I wish we had done that, things I want to change. And now, like, if there's enough distance from it, I was just able to get into the emotional arc of the film, and how, that was just wonderful.
Yeah. No, I don't really. I had the same, pretty much exact same feeling. I saw it recently in Berlin with an international audience, and that was really interesting because it was actually in the same cinema where it was the exact same cinema, the Zoopalast, where it was first screened in Berlin. So with the programmer who became like the godfather to my daughter, so like very good friend, and we both were sitting in the back. We were like crying. Because it was just it was our youth, because it was like 31 years ago, but showing it to a new audience. And so it was pretty amazing. It's been really nice. I wanted to say thank you so much for hosting us, because it's just wonderful to see it on a movie screen.
Yeah,
Especially since there's so many movies in the movie,
Oh yeah, we get a lot of value for your dollar in this film. I saw a question right here.
Yeah, I was just wondering how long it took you to make this movie, and what kind of a staff did you have?
I'll try. I think we raised money for several years, right?
Yeah, I mean,
we probably got the first grant in 81 or 82. Or 80?
You and I, from when we started, were raising money and trying to do some of the research for almost 2 or 3 years. We went into full-time production for almost a year. We didn't have enough money to finish it, and sort of dragged out the editing and post-production process for like another year and a half, another year and a half or so. I mean, so if you condensed all that, maybe it would only been like 2.5 years, but it seemed like it consumed a large portion of my late 20s doing the film.
Well, it's funny because I remember I was a co-producer on the Greetings from Washington, D.C., and that was the first National March on Washington for gay rights in 1979. And this was, I think, premiered in the spring of '84, right? Was it the cast or the summer of '83?
No.
Summer of '84?
85.
No, it was February '85. It was in Berlin, right?
Yeah, but that was about the same time when we showed it in the Castor.
Oh, it wasn't in June?
Maybe it wasn't. I don't think we.
Well, anyway, so that was like 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
from the sort of beginning to work on it to the release, which in perspective is not that long, considering it's basically principal primary research, shot on 16, cut on 16. And we actually had to have prints and ship prints around. It's phenomenal when you think of it. I mean, it was just such a physical thing at the time. But there were basically, 3 principal producers, 2 directors, an archival research director, and archival I can't remember. Amy was the production coordinator.
We had maybe like almost 10 people, 8, 9, 10 people full time in New York for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we had another set of ancillary people around the country helping with all the sites. But it definitely dragged on for a long time.
Then we had an editor, Bill Doughton, who actually, now that I've edited many movies, my respect and appreciation for him in this film gets deeper and deeper, because the movement, the pacing, the juxtaposition of imagery, it's just the music, the way that he leads from one place in the movie to the next. I just find it so smooth.
There's a lot of ground to cover. I want to do a sweep and see if we have any other burning question to get out. I'm so glad. Okay. Which question is what's the movie?
God. This is the Army. Thank you.
Who are you? Thank you.
Did Vito Russo help with any?
He was one of the really important resources for the film.
Vito?
Yeah. But I mean, some of that stuff he had already identified. We did not make this film in isolation or alone. So people like him, like I said, John D'Amelio, Alan Berube, Joe Nessel of the Lesbian History Archives. These people had, some of them, even though they were doing written histories, had their fingers on things that had happened in terms of visual history as well. So we used all their resources to help us make the film.
I don't remember them having any visual, or very little visual.
No, I had a list from John and Alan of like TV shows or films that dealt with stuff. They didn't have the access to them.
Right,
we had to
right.
find them. We had to find them.
But we didn't, because a lot of them weren't saved, right?
Right. It was
So when we went looking, they weren't saved. But Vito was Vito was Vito. He was amazing, in so many ways. But with leading to visual representation and interpretation and understanding of those representations, Vito was the best.
He wrote the book.
She's doing that up there in the back. I think she means wrap it up.
Oh yeah. Well, so I was thinking, like, how do you sum up, the way you feel about a movie that you may take as personally as I take this one, but it's interesting. Then it's telling a history. It becomes then an object in history. Doing work with other films and standing on its merits and open to revision and expansion and by all kinds of other people. But just as a last thought, the place that this may occupy in the work of your lives, I was just wondering, like, what is your relationship to Before Stonewall?
Well, for one thing, once you make a film like this that's so openly gay, I remember, being in any kind of straight mainstream film context, and I'll have straight filmmakers. Oh, he made Before Stonewall. So I realized I could never not be a gay filmmaker in any film professional context, even if I didn't work on other gay projects. But I have done more programming curatorial work since then, and I went on and founded the Miami Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, and it was very interesting because certainly I brought this credential to this. And I remember another job I had with the Miami Film Festival, and the board of directors was interviewing me, and one of the older straight guys said, "Well, you've made a very important classic film, and it'd be an honor to have you here." So I sort of does follow you around and informs the work that you do. But I also sometimes in a more mainstream film context, I've always had to be really clear with people that I was not programming as a gay film person, but as a general appreciator of art film and film as art. And that's always, you can't escape this thing on your resume. But it's a great. I mean, it was a seminal experience and an amazing experience, an amazing honor to meet these people and have them enrich my lives.
What's the question exactly? I started drifting. Well, I mean, I started daydreaming about what he was saying.
Yeah.
How did the film inform my life and career? Everything. I mean, I went to the Berlinale with this film and met my whole mentor people, and ended up making a whole series of films on lesbian and gay culture and history around in different places in the world. And I have done that for 30 some years. So, it launched my whole trajectory. Even though my last two films are not gay, lesbian, and I've made other topic films. Stylistically, as I said, I think earlier, it set a tone for films where I'm interested in telling the story from the point of view of the people who do the work or live the story. And even though I'm doing films on, science and creationism, and a film about ecological restoration right now, I'm following the story of the people who are actually doing the work and living out the ideas. So in that way, and that film will have no archive. But I think that's a thread. Is that a thread? Yeah. I think that I think that.
I think so too. And
I'm glad we think that.
Yeah. And I thank you both for being here. It's been really memorable, wonderful.